Hey guys, what's up? Surmo11 here with something a little bit different this time around. Today I'll be going through my top 10 villains from Miraculous Ladybug. There's a villain in every episode, so there's a lot of them. But who is my favorite villain of all time from Season 1? Let's take a look and find out. Starting things off with number 10, Roger Cop. Introduced in episode 9, Roger Cop is a akumatized version of Sabrina's father. Roger Cop is equipped with blasters that allow him to shoot red and blue handcuffs. When these handcuffs are put on people, he can use this whistle to command them. He can also attach his shoes to moving surfaces. Roger Cop is obviously a nod to the sci-fi movie character RoboCop. Moving on to number 9, Timebreaker. Alex, or Timebreaker, was akumatized in episode 4. Timebreaker is a fast character who uses her rollerblades to move around. She can absorb life energy by touching others, and once these people are touched, they start to fade from existence. Timebreaker has a really cool design and can even go back in time. This ability is dependent on how many people she's absorbed. Moving on to number 8, Puppeteer. Manon, aka the Puppeteer, was akumatized in episode 24. As the Puppeteer, she gains a pretty cool design, and she is able to fly around, and she can control people by zapping dolls of them. By using this power, she is able to bring back villains such as Lady Wi-Fi, Roger Cop, and the Evil Illustrator. And one problem that I have noticed with Ladybug's villains is that some of them have similar powers, such as being able to create things or control things, and you'll hear more about this as the list continues. Moving on to number 7. Dark Cupid. Introduced in episode 10, Dark Cupid is an akumatized version of Kim. And this villain really isn't that interesting. I mainly like the design rather than the powers. Dark Cupid can fly and use his bow and arrow to shoot people. He turns feelings of love into hate. These curses can be broken by a kiss. Moving on to number 6, the Mime. The Mime, or Fred, I don't want to butcher his last name, is able to mime. Can I use the word like that? He is able to mime anything. Fred was akumatized in episode 13. The items are invisible, but they are very real. So he's been shown creating swords, bazookas, working vehicles, and he can even create strength. He can only use one item or power at once, otherwise he'd be pretty overpowered. If he tries to use more than one power or weapon at once, the old one will disappear and be replaced by the new one. Here's a fun fact for you. When this show was being animated, they would animate the mime's weapons first and then make them invisible. Moving on to number 5, Volpina. Introduced in the Season 1 finale, episode 26, as a character and a villain, Lila, or Volpina, is akumatized by Hawkmoth. Volpina can use her flute to create a ball of energy. She then uses the flute to throw this ball of energy and uses it to create illusions. She's created a meteor, Hawkmoth, a clone of herself, and even various missiles. The problem with her illusions is that anything tangible can interrupt them, making her powers pretty useless. Lila claims to be the descendant of Volpina, and I'm not too big on this character. I think I like more of what she represents for the future of the show. As I've said numerous times, I want a more story-driven plot than an episodic one for Miraculous. The plot in this episode really isn't resolved, and that's even noted by Hawkmoth, so hopefully the events of this episode will lead into Season 2 and maybe even Season 3. Moving on to number 4, Anti-Bug. Anti-Bug, or Chloe, is pretty much the bully of the series. She gets akumatized in episode 25. She becomes Anti-Bug, which is pretty much the opposite of Ladybug, and she even has Ladybug's colors, but they are inverted. She has the same powers as Ladybug, which doesn't make her that interesting. She also has Lucky Charm in the form of Anti-Charm, and I think what I really liked about this character was that she had a huge sword, and maybe her Anti-Charm gives her more weapons. Ladybug normally just gets random items, but I like the fact that in this episode, Anti-Bug is able to summon this huge sword. Moving on to number 3, Darkblade. Darkblade, aka our man, was introduced in episode 12, and I thought his powers were very cool. He can knight others and turn them into his servants. He can also transform vehicles, and of course he is very skilled with a sword. Moving on to number 2, the Pharaoh. I don't even know how to say this character's name, but he is the brother of Alex, and the Pharaoh was introduced in episode 6, and that's the only episode that this villain and this character have been seen in. This character has some of the coolest powers in this show. I mentioned how a lot of characters can control others or create things. I find that to be not very creative, but this character is loaded with abilities, and that's why I like this character so much. The Pharaoh has telekinesis, but he is also able to use the powers of Egyptian gods. Now, I'm gonna butcher these names because I don't know how to say them, but with Throth, he can create bubbles that slow time. With Sekhmet, he can create shockwaves with his hands. With Anubis, he can shoot rays that turn others into mummies that he can control. And finally, with Horus, he can fly. And I like this character because unlike other Ladybug villains, he actually felt like a threat. Finally, the number one villain is, unprofessional drum beat, the Evil Illustrator. That's a pretty lame villain name. Introduced in episode 8, the Evil Illustrator, or Nathan, has the power to draw whatever he wants. He uses a phone tablet for this. He can also erase objects from real life, and he does need light to draw, so that kind of gives his powers somewhat of a limitation because he can't draw if it's dark. I know what you're thinking. I complained about characters being able to create things before, but if you haven't noticed, I'm also factoring in the episodes with the characters. I like this episode. I felt bad for Nathan when Chloe made fun of him. He even likes the main character, Marinette. Why can't we get more of this? Well, that is my list of my top 10 characters from Miraculous Ladybug. Who are your favorite characters, and are you excited for Season 2? I wish they would have had more of a story going on and developed the side characters more, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like my content and want to see more, be sure to subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook. The links are below. I'm Surma11. See you next time, and peace out.